Well, let's get to our first topic of discussion this Monday afternoon. Now, according to the Consumer Product Index, that's a report released by the National Bureau of Statistics on Friday, Nigeria's inflation rate surged to 33.88%. That's in October 2024, up from 32.70% in September. The movement indicated a 1.18 percentage points increase month on month. On a year-on-year basis, the headline inflation rate was 6.55%. That's a percentage points higher than the rate recorded in October 2023, which was 27.33%. Now, on a month-on-month basis, the headline inflation rate in October 2024 was 2.64%, which was 0.12% higher than the rate recorded in September 2024. Now, 2.52%. This means that in October 2024, the rate of increase in the average price level was higher than the rate of increase in the average price level in September 2024. The executive summary of this report reads that on a month-on-month basis, food inflation rate in October 2024 was 2.94%, which shows a 0.30% increase compared to the rate recorded in September 2024. Let's talk to Dr. Chijoke Ekechukwu. He is the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, Dignity Finance and Investment Unlimited, a top member of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He joins me via Zoom to start up the conversation this week. Good afternoon, Dr. Ekechukwu. It's good to have you start the week with us. How are you today?
Very well. Good afternoon, Tolu.
Yes. Doc, let me ask you what you were expecting when the October inflation figures came. Obviously, analysts like you have talked about expecting an increase because of what we see. Increase in price of fuel, increase in energy prices, and all that we see across the board. But from 32.7% to 33.88%, what's your take with regards to this shift, the figures at this time?
Yeah, Tolu, as you were mentioning the drivers of this increase in inflation rates, you already know all these factors. But I can tell you, I expected the increase. You know, whenever there is increase in inflation rates, it's either there is a cost push or there is demand pull. And in our own case right now, it's been driven by costs of petroleum products, cost of exchange rates, cost of many other things that are already leading to this increase in cost of everything. Of course, prices of goods and services have gone up so much that we expected that this increase would happen. But as we approach towards the end of the year, we are going to have a combination of cost push and demand pull, because we're going to be talking about a season where everybody will be buying bags of rice, people are going to be buying tomatoes, people are going to be buying a whole lot of food items and building materials and many things like that. So there's going to be a demand pull at that time. And so when you have a combination of the two, you expect that this inflation rate is not going to go down, except it will start getting to about January, February, as the case may be next year. So these are the expectations that we are going to be handling between now and the end of the year.
So does that mean that preparing for Christmas, many would tell you that food inflation seems to be the highest when we look at the figures here, looking at the breakdown, and we still have a bit of insecurity in some cases. We have increased production also in some cases. What do you think would happen? I spoke to the commissioner for finance from Benue State. He was talking about what they are doing to ensure that they still sustain being the food basket of the country. So what more are you expecting that can help address food prices as we move towards the end of the year? It's very important, Dr. Ekechukwu.
Yes, what I expect that we can do is to do everything to bridge the shortage that's going to happen between now and December ending. And if we bridge the shortage, and the way to bridge shortage is to increase production of agricultural produce. And for those ones who are not able to meet the gap, we have to import them. A lot of the rights we have today in this country may not be able to meet the demand that we're going to be having between now and the end of the year. So it already, the presidency has given concession concerning the taxes that will happen to food items that will be imported. And of course, things like rice, like I mentioned before, well, the demand is going to be very high, and we expect that we need to bring more to be able to cushion what gap that may exist from local production. And that is going to happen with many other ones. But again, it's a win for the people in agriculture because they are going to be having all their products sold off. And so that way is going to increase whatever impact is going to have on the GDP. And so it is a win-win kind of, because yes, it's going to increase inflation rate, but the activities and the traction, economic traction, is going to increase for us as a country.
Part of the efforts of government that we've seen is the removal of some taxes and levies on some of this food stuff. All is to try and address the pricing. But Dr. Ikechukwu, would you say this has really impacted the price of food stuff across the board, aside from states that are going ahead with their specific interventions? You would tell me that the price of likes of flour is still on the other side.
Yes, you know, I know that the federal government tried to remove some tariffs on some imported and even for locally manufactured items. But you see that the impact of this concession may not be felt now, because this that which was announced sometime last month or last 2 months, the impact will not be felt right now. In the long run, what will always bring food on everybody's table cheap enough is if the subnationals continue to produce food that are known to them and that grow well in their own areas. They have to get involved. The state governments must get involved. You know, they must get involved. And I have always mentioned that if every state gets involved in everything that they produce well, the country is going to have a lot of food all over the place, and then we'll have surplus of it, and then that will force the prices down. And so if we have a good supply of these food items, we're going to have prices come down, and competition will just be there to force the prices down. So these are the things we need to do. Every state government must get involved. People in various states must get involved. And even if the soil is not growing so well, we can always talk about these green farm areas that we have to continue to have. We must have them, you know, and there is no way, if we have all the states producing at the same time, we're going to have excess food. But right now, that is not happening because we have our allocations that will be sent to us monthly, and of course, we use it to incur, pay for our costs. So if states are deliberate about growing food, we're going to have excess of them because we have arable lands all over the country, and we need to use them to grow food in the country in the long run.
Not to forget about waste, the ones that we get wasted, foodstuffs that get wasted along the line before they even get from either north to south, and our storage issues. Doc, these are also issues that experts like you have been making comments around them. What do you think we can also do to manage waste and improve storage? Because it's becoming a very, very big problem for agriculture.
That's right. You know, that tells you the size of investment opportunities that exist in this country. We have not seen many business people investing so much in storage and making sure that all the things, all the food items that are indeed perishable can actually be kept for a longer time when they are scarce, and obviously their prices are going to double. All we see is that during you go along the way and you see a lot of fruits being damaged just because they were wasted. And then onions, tomatoes, no storage facility that can keep them into the next season. So that tells you that we have a lot of investment opportunity that exists there. So it's just for business people to see that as an opportunity to invest in. We're not going to wait for government only in this regard, because there is a latent need for that. And because there's a latent need, the business will just grow immediately you establish it. So that's an opportunity for anybody who.
Dr. Ikechukwu, do we still have you on? All right, Dr. Ikechukwu, there we'll continue our conversation. Of course, I think we're trying to get him back online and to make more sense of the inflation figures and what it means moving forward. Of course, it's few weeks to Christmas, and everyone is interested with regards to price of foods and all of that. Dr. Ikechukwu?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, we have started this race for some time. I will talk about the race of increasing NPR to try to use it to rein in on inflation. We've been running this race, let me put it that way, for some time. The CBN maintains inflation targeting. We're going to do all that is possible to manage inflation and, of course, cost of currency and all of that. But let me ask you, now that inflation is still moving southwards, and then we still see that inflation is going higher, there is nothing we can do about that. And it seems like it might stay on that as we move towards the end of the year. Do you think it would be right for the Monetary Policy Committee to meet sometime next week and still increase rates?
So, look, I have been consistent with what I have said about this particular item. I keep saying that monetary policy is not the only tool that can be used to curtail inflation increase. Because there are many other factors that are outside the monetary policy that are causing increase in inflation rate. You mentioned insecurity. You mentioned the high cost of petroleum products. We mentioned effects. We also mentioned bad roads that are existing everywhere. We mentioned insecurity. And so we see that demand and supply, we have, many times we don't even have enough food that will go around. That has nothing to do with monetary policy. Okay, so now if we continue to increase NPR, what will happen again is that interest rates will continue to rise up for people, agriculturists, and some other people who are borrowing money from the banks. And so, and these are not things that can grow our economy. We should be able to have enough funds. We need to have enough access to funds that will stimulate this economy and that will actually alleviate the sufferings and the hardship of the country. You know, when people cannot access funds and cannot access food, and we're using monetary policy to curtail inflation rate, that cannot solve the problems. And that is just why, while other countries are already having the inflation rate go down, ours is still going up, because the factors that are responsible for ours are totally different from factors that are responsible for the reduction of other countries. So we need to look at those other factors and deal with them head on, and we shouldn't stifle the economy by continuing to tighten all the time.
Are we back to getting that handshake between the fiscal side and the monetary side? I totally also agree with you that it's not a one-sided deal. It shouldn't be just on the monetary side. The fiscal side obviously have a role to play in this. But we've seen some moves also from the fiscal side. For example, the Taiwo Edele-led committee, at the moment they are speaking to the House of Representatives members, trying to make sense of that bill. That's the tax bills that federal government wants to revamp and, you know, make it more clearer for Nigerians to understand how taxes will be paid. But you know that this has generated comments. And of course, to the point of some even saying that should be brought down. It shouldn't be moved. It shouldn't be accepted by the members of the National Assembly. So how do we now get the needed handshake when we are having all of this back and forth with regards to both parties coming together?
I've gone through the recommendations of Taiwo's committee, and everything being recommended was geared towards having that handshake. A few people may have seen certain aspects that may not suit them, and so they complain about those areas. But I think that committee was very considerate in making sure that the people who are lower in the society are actually very comfortable, paying almost little or no taxes, and then making sure that the taxes will favor, the tax policy will favor very medium people, SMEs doing business. And so I think Nigerians should go through that document again. And when they go through it very well, they will see that that document is actually people-oriented and Nigeria, people-oriented and not just government-oriented. So that obviously was going to bring enough handshake between the monetary and the fiscal policy. But the delay that we have in implementing it is actually not so good for us because that was actually the intent and intention of that particular policy document.
Exactly. That is why I am worried that if we take so much time to sync ideas, then implementing it, how long will it take us before we now start to get the positives of policies or, of course, initiatives like this one? But before I let you go, let's talk about the Trade and Investment and Industry Ministry. We've seen a change in that ministry, and we've been trying since last week to set an agenda to look at what's being done. Yes, of course, the former minister did a lot too, but what's being done, what should be done better, what can we do better to help trade facilitation? Dr. Ikechukwu, a lot is at stake. AFCFTA is there. We are yet to take advantage of it. Open market. You understand that? So what would you say are the quick wins for the minister to revamp and begin to, activate all the positives in this very, very important ministry?
Yeah, very important ministry. When we talk about the fiscal policy, we talk about the monetary policy. There is also the trade policy, which, if not well harnessed, will affect every other effort negatively being made by the other areas of government. Now, as a trade ministry, what they have to be looking at is just the business side of it. To be able to say, do we have a balanced payment? Are we exporting or importing more than we're exporting? And so when we look at this, we have to always ensure that we set certain targets to continue to increase our exports and continue to increase our exports. And set those targets, and if there are hindrances, we need to come back to the table to address those hindrances. So when we have balance of payment not in our favor, and we have balance of trade not in our favor, we should be able to ask questions. What percentage is it? How can we grow it from 0.1 to 0.2? And we continue like that. When countries come to us and they want B2B meetings or government-to-government meetings, there is something they're targeting. They want to actually grow their own business. So we need to also ask, what is it for us as a country when these business relationships are entered into and there are MOUs signed? We need to take advantage of all the regional trade organizations and regional trade treaties that we have signed and ensure that we benefit from them. I know that some countries in Africa are benefiting already, taking advantage of these particular opportunities that are existing in Africa, and they are taking advantage of them head on. So we need to also key into that and start checking our records. What do we have? Where do we want to be in the next 1 year? Where do we want to be in the next 3 years? That's just how to check our scorecard to be able to know what to achieve.
Indeed, I agree with you, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu, Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. Thank you for joining us live from Abuja. We appreciate this and do have a great week.
Thank you very much, Tolu. Have a nice day, too.
Well, coming up next on the show, looking at Trump's presidency, yes, and contending geopolitical issues. A senior portfolio manager with Afri Invest West Africa